Welcome to Washington. I'm Britt Hume. The White House made it unmistakably clear today that President Bush will do all he can to keep a bill ardently sought by organized labor and strongly supported by Democrats from becoming law. The measure would change the way workers make the decision on whether to make their workplace into a union shop. As congressional correspondent Major Garrett reports, political battle lines are now clearly drawn.
President Bush today threatened to veto a bill pushed by House Democrats and their labor allies to undermine secret ballots in union organizing elections. The administration opposes any effort to circumvent supervised elections and private balloting. It is a fundamental tenet of democracy that individuals are able to vote their conscience privately, free from the threat of reprisal. Liberal California Democrat George Miller is spearheading efforts to substitute secret ballot union elections with a system where union organizers distribute and collect cards seeking union representation.
It says that when a majority of workers sign cards authorizing a union, they get a union. They don't get harassed. They don't get intimidated.
But 6 years ago, Miller, in a letter to Mexican union officials, urged them to preserve secret ballots in union elections. "We are writing to encourage you to use the secret ballot in all union recognition elections," Miller said in a letter signed by 15 other House Democrats. "The secret ballot is absolutely necessary in order to ensure that workers are not intimidated into voting for a union they might not otherwise choose." Miller now says the letter to Mexican officials dealt with a dispute between competing unions, not over the question of whether to organize a union at all. But this issue has become a bit ticklish for North Carolina freshman Heath Shuler, who ran as a pro-business Democrat. Shuler supports Miller's bill, and he's one of 3 Democrats in GOP-leaning districts now targeted by a business-backed radio campaign.
The same liberal leaders want to protect private ballot elections for workers in Mexico. Private ballots for Mexico and open ballots for Americans. That's crazy. Call Congressman Heath Shuler. Tell him American workers deserve the same rights as Mexican workers.
Miller said this about such attacks.
I would find it interesting that the business is going to run a campaign to punish people. This is what they've been doing to these workers all these years, so that would be absolutely consistent.
Republicans said replacing secret ballot elections with a card check system could subject employees to harassment from union organizers or management.
If they sign a card, everybody knows, and that opens up intimidation from both sides. So we believe that very strongly in the workers' rights to have a secret ballot.
Union membership declined by more than 300,000 last year, falling to 15.4 million workers, or 12% of the labor force. In 1983, union workers accounted for 20% of the workforce.
Unions are doing what any failed business would do, and that is when their model's in trouble, turn to the government for protection.
Big labor unions like the AFL-CIO and the Service Employees Union, SEIU, gave Democrats $56 million in last year's election cycle, helping to push their agenda to the top of the new Democratic Congress.
This is not just talk in Washington. This affects real lives of real people who are husbands and wives and mothers and fathers.
The House is due to pass the bill tomorrow on a near-party line vote. It's called, by the way, the Employee Free Choice Act, a title the San Francisco Examiner called, quote, exquisitely Orwellian. Senate Republicans call it the Worker Intimidation Act, Britt, and vow to block it with a filibuster.
So if it gets past a filibuster, it's still facing a veto, and
Absolutely.
that would require, what, 2/3 in both houses?
Never be overridden. Not a chance.
Thanks, Major.